Greetings everyone. We continue our reading of Prabhuji's book, Bhakti Yoga, the Path of Love. We are still in Preface, and today we will discuss following paragraph. Prabhuji writes, I am not a merchant of recycled information, nor do I intend to trade with my spiritual state. I do not teach beliefs or philosophies, but speak only about what I see and share solely what I know. Prabhuji begins this paragraph stating, I am not a merchant of recycled information. And I would like to relate to the first words, I am not a merchant. The early years of Prabhuji's life were dedicated to hard physical work. He took it as a spiritual practice, following a very simple principle, let your hands be engaged in work and your mind and your heart in the divine. Since the inception of the mission, almost 30 years ago, he took upon himself great responsibility, guiding every single aspect of it, and quite literally giving his life and soul to every one of his disciples. After he retired from public life, he keeps giving through his conferences, his writings, his art, and most of which is freely available on the mission's website. I see his life as a true embodiment of simple living and high thinking, and his love for wisdom and his passion for the divine as his life and soul, but definitely not his profession. And he is very determined that he's not ready to sell it to anyone for any price. And as he writes in the second sentence of this paragraph, I do not intend, as he writes, to trade with my spiritual state, and we will talk about it in a minute. But I would like us to go back to the first sentence where Prabhuji speaks about recycled information. I feel for me, as his disciple and a spiritual aspirant, this aspect of recycled information is very important, and I think it might be beneficial for you as well. From my experience, I feel it is so tempting to walk around quoting the scriptures, declaiming the words of our spiritual master and the spiritual masters of the past, without really digesting them, without really understanding what we actually are saying, what it means to us. It is so tempting. It feels so great. It feels that we do our dharma, we do our duty, that we're able to help others, that we're able to inspire others, that we're able to share or spread the word of God with them. But Prabhuji speaks here, and I feel that he brings our attention to this aspect of recycled information, encouraging us to not just repeat those words, not just memorize them, but to meditate on them. As we spoke before, to allow them to be reflected in us to dare to inquire into them, even to doubt, to try to understand them, to try to see them in our life. It is so important. And not to give to this temptation of sharing this recycled information, which we so used to do in our life. If we pay attention, for most of us, from the beginning of our life, and I highly recommend you to listen to a beautiful lecture by one of my dearest God sisters, is Her Grace, Swami Ramananda. She speaks about knowledge and wisdom, and she elaborates in such a beautiful way about all this subject. But this aspect of receiving information, receiving names that associated for us with certain forms, receiving and accepting without doubt, without consideration, without thinking about what we actually receive, different ideas, different convictions. It is so common. We do it all the time. We receive it from our parents, we receive it from our teachers, we receive it through social media, we receive it through all different means of information. And most often, we repeat those words. And not just words, we're receiving and accepting those convictions. And we're repeating them without really looking into what we are saying and what it means for us, and often what it means for others. It's just a matter of convenience. So I feel when Prabhuji speaks here about not to be a merchant, even if we don't sell recycled information, but to aspire to go deep, to aspire to make this knowledge our own, truly our own. And I feel it's very inspiring. In the second sentence, Prabhuji writes, I do not intend to trade with my spiritual state. And I feel it's so relevant, and his attitude toward it is so beautiful as I see it. When we approach a spiritual master, when we go in spiritual life, and especially nowadays, as our tendency, when we decide to embark on a spiritual journey, we try to find the best guide. And then there is this conversation in spiritual circles discussing different masters. Is this a individuum is enlightened or bad? And how much they're enlightened? And Prabhuji say, this is mine. My spiritual state is between me and the divine. It's the most profound and most intimate thing that one can experience. And it is not in a public domain. It has nothing to do with public. It's mine. So it's not open for discussion. I do not trade with that, as Prabhuji say. I do not try to prove something, stating that my words are true because I'm enlightened. This is something that we should put aside, as he says. So Prabhuji writes, I do not teach philosophies or beliefs. And we spoke about philosophies in our previous talks. And today I would like to relate to the beliefs, which I feel so significant in his works. He told us once that he does not teach or preach belief, but rather he preached doubt. Now, doubt is something so unsettling, something that it's so uncomfortable for us to accept, something that often rejected or definitely discouraged within many spiritual establishments. And not only in spiritual establishments, in a society as establishment in general. We are looking for convictions. We are looking for answers. We are looking for certainty. And doubt does exactly the opposite. It unravels our foundation. It questions the things that we take for granted. But it has such an important place. In the path of Advaita Vedanta, or what we call Jnana Yoga, the path of wisdom, there is a very important practice that we discussed or mentioned earlier that called neti neti. If we accept, if we understand that reality cannot be achieved by any objective means, we cannot perceive the divine, we cannot see the truth because it lacks, as Prabhuji writes, objective qualities. It's not an object. So the only thing that we can do, because if we accept this axiomatic truth that reality, the truth, the divine, is underlying everything that exists. It's the very foundation and the essence of our own existence. The only way we're able to perceive it is through negation. By slowly removing layer by layer everything that might cover that. And the way to do this work is through doubt. But as we said, it's very unsettling. It's very uncomfortable. It requires courage. This process of doubting our own existence, doubting our convictions, doubting the world around us and the way we perceive it, is difficult and frightening at times. And that's why we encouraged to become a lion of Vedanta in order to persevere in this process. Prabhuji concludes this paragraph saying that I'm only speaking of what I see and share solely what I know. And I see it as a great encouragement. It means that life, reality, wisdom, divinity is not only something that we can hear about, but it's something that we should aspire to see. And once we're able to see those things, or we become them in certain extent, and then we can share, and it's a great aspiration, something that we truly know, something which is truly a life. Jaya Prabhuji.